Greetings, I'm Mark Hunter with McPherson.Tech. This is the second in a series of videos for Worship Tech Booth staff and volunteers. The first part is for the tech team at the service and covers the general use of the slides and the services and a few tricks to make things work well. The second part is more for the creators behind the scenes tech folk who set the booth up and the presentations up. So let's get started. I have two computers set up for slides and presentations at the First United Methodist Church in McPherson, Kansas. For this training, I have PowerPoint and ProPresenter running. I will show some additional alternatives later, but I'm showing the PowerPoint as an example, as a simple example. Most volunteers will have at least a basic understanding of how to start and run a PowerPoint, so it's a good foundation to start with. Guest speakers, funerals, and weddings also show up with PowerPoints. So it's a good idea to at least have the ability to show a PowerPoint presentation. There is a free Microsoft PowerPoint viewer available, but it is no longer being updated. There's also some other alternatives, but that's another blog or video as well. We begin by starting the program on your computer. Since there are hopefully several people involved with creating these slides, loading them on the computer, and running them during services, it's a good idea to have some kind of standard naming on the files and have them about the same place on your desktop each week. At the First United Methodist Church, we typically have two services each Sunday, with one titled with the date and a T, which means it's for the traditional service. The other has the date and a C for the contemporary services. Now we also have announcement slides, which are embedded in each of these PowerPoints, but we put those files on the desktop as well, just in case there's any last-minute changes that need to be made. These announcement slides are actually run in a looped presentation during the service. Once we start our program, we'll actually go through and run the presentation from the beginning. If you are streaming, I suggest having a title slide set up for a few minutes while you start the stream. This title slide shows your CCLI license if you have one and other information. It also makes a good thumbnail image for weekly services. The next slide is your pre-service announcements. Our church office admin has announcements in a PowerPoint at her desk, and she simply exports a video each week for pre-service and post-service. It doesn't matter what programs are used, but simply adding a looping video each week is easy. I'll talk about that next green slide in just a moment. After the service is over and you have quit out of the presentation software, it is great if you help keep the desktop clean. I have a folder directory called Past Services. Simply drag the services for this week into that folder before you shut down the computer. Most of your staff and volunteers should know how to go through slides in PowerPoint and other programs, but I'm going to go through some details that will make the presentations better. I will have some additional videos on details of setting all this up later on, but here are a few presentations hints to start with. This is the PowerPoint presentation mode view, with the slides being sent out to our projector and live stream. Make sure that you have saved the file if you've made any changes. Some programs have a great autosave feature that can tie up the computer for just a few seconds if you don't save. That autosave always seems to happen right when you should advance the words in a song, so try to avoid it. I also suggest using the down arrow key or right arrow key to advance through the slides instead of using the mouse. The mouse works, but it is easy to double-click it and skip a slide accidentally. Sometimes it takes a few moments for the next slide to load, especially on older computers, and volunteers who are used to those much faster computers tend to skip slides, especially when they use the mouse. The spacebar also works with most programs, but I've noticed a higher chance to accidentally double bounce on that as well. You do have to have presentation software selected as the current program for the arrow key to work. So if you're tabbing between different programs for other settings, make sure that you return to the presentation. I suggest only having the presentation software running on the computer during the service and use other computers for all that other stuff. In PowerPoint, you can go to the screen that shows all the slides in the presentation to let you skip around, but be careful. If your person presenting is using a clicker or keyboard to advance the slides up front, then going to this screen that shows all of the slides disables the clicker. There are several options I'll present in another video for making clickers work in a huge worship environment center, but if you remove the computer's focus from the presenter view and the software, then the clicker may not work. At the First United Methodist Church, the tech booth advances the slides through most of the service, but the sermons are done by the pastors or presenters. We have had some problems when we were not in the presenter view and the clicker didn't work for the pastors. You will notice a lot of green in our presentation. I use a technique known as chroma key, generally known as a green screen, to mix two video streams. Weather forecasters on the news channels generally stand in front of a giant green screen at the studio and point to places shown on another screen that are combined using the chroma key technique. They see themselves pointing those objects on a screen that is in front of them as they're looking at the camera. I have green screens and stage lighting do that same thing, but that doesn't quite work for live productions. In our live presentations on the stage, instead of the pastors and singers being in front of some image on a screen, I am placing an image in front of them, and wherever there is green on my image, they show through. You can be very creative with this, but you have to be careful that your cameras are zoomed in place properly so that your screen images don't block what you want to show through. On these slides, you will see that the words will show up above the singers on our video. They're also shown at the top of the screen area in our worship center for people who are attending the live service. These slides overlay some of the text across the lower third of the screen, and here are a few with some other layouts as well. Combining the presentation feed and the camera feed can be done through hardware video systems or with software including many free options. The hardware approach is generally easier for volunteers, but will be several $100s. I will show you several other options available in the streaming and camera trainings. Occasionally, your presenters will have slides with lots of green on them that they don't want removed. I've had pastors' faces showing up on flower petals. In this case, you either show the picture with the chroma key shut off so no merging occurs. I use the ATM mini-series hardware and have a simple button to turn that effect on or off, or change your hardware or software settings to use a different color and change the background color on all of your slides. If you are presenting to a live stream and in-person audience at the same time, then you can be running two presentations on two computers that allows you to change what shows up online separately from what the local viewers see. You can even set up clickers to advance both presentations at the same time. This can be a lot of extra work, so I use the same presentation for both. I replace the green screen on the camera feed, and so the live stream sees our pastors, and I replace the green screen with black for the local projector that we put up on the screen. Some groups just put the live stream up on the projector. Whatever presentation software you use, here's some more hints to make things work easier. When you're advancing song slides, make sure you advance the slide before the last syllable is reached on the final word. There is a very slight delay after you press the key for the next slide, and sometimes that delay is more than others. You should not have any fades between slides because people need to see the words quickly. They need a moment to see that text before they can actually sing the words. If there is a period, or if you know if there's a break in the singing, then you can wait until after the last word is finished. If it is a multiple syllable word, then wait until they begin singing the word, but make sure that you go to the next slide before the final syllable is reached. I like to include punctuation like commas and periods in the music slides, but some people leave them out. Just keep them consistent. Also check to make sure that words like Christ and God are capitalized properly and that any pronouns referring to them are also capitalized. It's better to have some pronouns capitalized that don't need to be, rather than having people forget the entire service message just because they're obsessed with making sure that you know you forgot to capitalize something. If you have videos embedded in your slides, make sure that they are set up to autoplay or auto start when you get to that slide. That makes it much easier. If you want to show a picture and then have a video start playing over part of it, then make a copy of that slide and insert the video in the second copy instead of using the option to automatically start the video when it comes up. That makes it much more obvious in the slide view and in the printed slide sheets. Having to click anything to activate or start it can cause problems. If you're embedding music in the PowerPoint files, then you need to make sure that that hide the icon during presentation option is clicked, or else it'll actually show a little speaker on the screen as the music is playing. I like to have two computers available for the presentation with a switch to change between them. This gives you a backup system, and it also allows you to edit something later in the service if needed. Some software lets you edit while a presenter is showing other slides, but it is still easy for someone not familiar with the program to kill the presentation. Now, volunteers and staff should not worry too much about running the slides for the service. No matter how many times you miss changing scenes or have to search for a slide because the order has been different since they weren't loaded on the computer properly, it isn't a big deal and no one will remember it the next week. People used to sing the songs and listen to sermons before there were projectors. They're there for the worship, and you shouldn't worry too much about exactly if everything goes perfectly every time. Now, the rest of this presentation is for those of you who must create the shows. I will have presentations available on PowerPoint alternatives, which include, but are not limited to, programs such as ProPresenter, Faith Life, Play Listener, Easy Worship, and others. Now, the first thing to take a look at is some of the considerations. Some of these are better on some OSs, operating systems, than others. You need to take a look at your computer capabilities. Do you want to go through and get one of the free programs, or one that requires a monthly payment or a one-time payment? Who will be doing the edits and where? Some of the programs have a very affordable single user license, but then you have to be at that computer in the sanctuary to be able to edit any of the presentation. Also, taking a look at how do you want to do your videos, songs, and backgrounds. Do you want to go through and have a very, advanced moving presentations, various things like that? And what are the learning curves on these programs? Some of them you'll have to have volunteers spend a lot of time learning how to operate, whereas if there's one that they know already, that may be the best alternative. Now, some of the big things to take a look at is, are you streaming locally or only live streaming? Or are you combining the two? A big thing that we've looked at is, what if the internet is down? You have to plan for no internet access. And how can you avoid having something that requires access? One of the big things that I do is I go through and I actually download all of any videos that we're showing during service. I've had too many services and presentations where they've had a video feed that was picked up off of YouTube. And right in the middle of it, either the internet goes down so it's not available during your service, or, believe it or not, they will actually go through and sometimes the video changes at the last minute, or there's an ad. Now, I actually use a service. If you go to mcpherson.tech and go to my download section, there's actually a service I use that you can take a look at there. But anything that lets you download the videos is a way to go through and make sure that you have them during the service. I use ProPresenter as one of my alternatives to PowerPoints because I'm more familiar with it through my work in theaters. If you do use ProPresenter and you are still using version 6, then you should be aware that version 6 is not supported after January 31st of 2023. Discount offers for upgrading to 7 were made available until that date, but check your supplier for pricing. Downloading, we talked a little bit about downloading, using videos and music. One thing is a lot of churches have a CCLI church video license. That is comes in 2 packages, kind of a family versus a total package. You need to make sure that you understand the terms of each package that you have, but understand that that does not always apply to live streaming the same as using it in your local service. There is a fair use policy that varies state by state, but it does let you use things such as a few seconds of a video or something like that, but you cannot go through and show a whole video even if you do have the CCLI license. Whatever you do use, even if it's a very short one, be sure that you give the proper source and credit, no matter if you have a license to show it or not. Now, with the CCLI license, you can stream music that you play, but you cannot stream the original artist's work. So if you download the recording and you're using that during the service, that may get blocked if you put this online on a YouTube or Facebook or anything else like that. Also, if you are going to go through, say if you found a video that you really like, it really fits into your theme for your church, and you keep using it repeatedly, again, that is not included in that CC-LI license. Anytime you have repeated use of content, use it as like a logo or anything else like that, make sure that you contact the source of that content and work out a deal with them. A lot of them are willing to do that for either a one-time fee or a pay-per-use. But make sure that you have that taken care of ahead of time. Now, there are some websites you can go to, wingclips.com and clipshot.com. That will actually give you free access to a lot of clips that you can use, and that way you're guaranteed full use. There are you can use some of those with fees, without fees, but you want to make sure that you go through and have rights to all that. And again, check out McPherson.tech because I will keep updating where to get the clips and other useful links for you there. These are just a few hints to get you started with your presentations. Let me know if there are specific presentation topics you would like help with, and check out www.mcpherson.tech.